Take a look around. This isn't a scene from some post-apocalyptic blockbuster. This is what's left of the engine that built the American century. This is the story of how Detroit, once one of the wealthiest cities on Earth, became a landscape of ghosts and ruins, a Rust Belt Requiem. So, what happens when the American dream leaves an entire city behind? To get what was lost, you first have to understand what was built here. In the first half of the 20th century, Detroit wasn't just a city. It was an idea. It was the white-hot center of American capitalism, the arsenal of democracy, and the undisputed heart of the car industry. This was the Motor City, forged in steel and powered by the constant hum of the assembly line. Hundreds of thousands flocked here for their piece of the American dream, a promise of $5 a day and a dignified life built on hard work. The city's population exploded, peaking at over 1.8 million people in 1950. Its neighborhoods were buzzing, its downtown was a glittering symbol of prosperity, and its factories were the envy of the world. This was the city that built the cars that gave America its freedom, its mobility, and its identity. But even at its peak, deep inside the gears of this great industrial engine, fractures were starting to show cracks that would eventually shatter the dream into a million pieces. The fall of Detroit wasn't one single event, but a slow, creeping decay that started back in the 1950s. The very industry that gave the city life began to systematically take it away. Looking for cheaper land and non-union labor, the auto giants began to decentralize. New, sprawling single-story factories weren't built in the city's core but in the suburbs and other states, leaving Detroit's multi-story industrial titans to slowly bleed out. At the same time, a massive demographic shift was underway. The dream of suburban life, with its promise of green lawns and bigger houses, pulled the city's middle-class, overwhelmingly white residents out of the city. This white flight wasn't an accident. It was actively pushed by federal housing policies and developers who favored huge tracts of single-family homes far from the urban center. As families left, they took their wealth, their tax dollars, and their economic power with them, creating a vacuum the city just couldn't fill. What was left was a city with a shrinking tax base, aging infrastructure, and a population that had less and less access to the good-paying jobs that had once been its foundation. The stage was set for a crisis, and the first major tremor was just around the corner. July 23, 1967. That date is seared into Detroit's collective memory. A police raid on an unlicensed after-hours club on 12th Street exploded into 5 days of what has been called both a riot and a rebellion. It was the violent climax of years of anger over racial discrimination, police brutality, and deep-seated inequality. When the smoke finally cleared, 43 people were dead, thousands were injured, and entire city blocks had been burned to the ground. But the physical damage was nothing compared to the psychological wound. The 1967 riots slammed the accelerator on the trends already in motion. White flight turned into a mass exodus. Businesses that hadn't been destroyed packed up and left, with no intention of coming back. The event was a clear, devastating turning point, a moment from which it seemed there was no return. It ripped the social fabric of the city to shreds, leaving behind a legacy of fear, division, and mistrust that would poison civic life for decades. The decades after 1967 were a period of relentless, grinding decline. The oil crisis of the 1970s hit the American auto industry hard, sparking more layoffs and factory closures. Between 1970 and 2021, Detroit's poverty rate more than doubled, climbing from just under 15% to over 33%. The population drain just kept going. With every family that left, another home sat empty and another lot went vacant. The city's huge size, 139 square miles, became its enemy. An infrastructure built for nearly 2 million people became an impossible burden for a population that was shrinking by the day. Vast areas of the city were practically unused, but still needed services the city couldn't afford. This kicked off a devastating cycle. As services got worse, more middle-class residents left, which made tax revenues plummet even further, leading to even worse services. Then, the 2008 financial crisis delivered the knockout blow to Detroit's already crippled housing market. The city became the epicenter of the nation's foreclosure crisis. It was staggering. Between 2005 and 2015, an astonishing 1 out of every 3 properties in Detroit went into foreclosure, nearly 140,000 homes. This was made worse by a broken property tax system. To make up for the shrinking tax base, property values were often overassessed, leading to tax bills so high they sometimes equaled half a house's value. Facing this impossible choice, many homeowners simply walked away, adding thousands more empty houses to the landscape of decay. By 2012, more than half of Detroit property owners weren't paying their taxes, blowing a massive hole in the city's budget. What happened in Detroit is more than just a story of bad economic luck. It's a requiem for a uniquely American promise. The abandoned neighborhoods are a physical symptom of a deeper, more painful story about race and inequality in America. It's no coincidence that the highest rates of abandonment are in Detroit's Black-majority neighborhoods. During the Great Migration, Black families who came north for opportunity were met with systemic racism that locked them out of the prosperity they helped build. Housing discrimination was everywhere. Mortgage companies, often pushed by discriminatory homeowners associations, frequently refused to lend to Black families. Many were forced into predatory land contracts that gave them all the responsibilities of ownership, but none of the security, making it incredibly easy for them to lose everything. White residents, driven by fears that Black neighbors would tank their property values, sometimes resorted to intimidation and violence, which police often ignored. This historic injustice created a city deeply segregated by race and class. It concentrated poverty and made it nearly impossible for Black families to build generational wealth. So, when the industrial jobs vanished, it was these communities, already at a systematic disadvantage, that were hit the hardest and had the fewest resources to bounce back. You can't tell the story of Detroit's abandonment without acknowledging that it is overwhelmingly a story of anti-Blackness, where deindustrialization was just the final blow to communities that had been under siege for decades. The empty factories and decaying homes aren't just monuments to economic failure. They are monuments to this profound historical injustice. Today, Detroit is a city of stark contrasts. The haunting beauty of ruins like the Packard Automotive Plant and Fisher Body Plant. 21 still command parts of the skyline, silent witnesses to a world that's gone. For years, they were a symbol of a city that time forgot. But if you look closer, you can see the seeds of a new Detroit. The most powerful symbol of this rebirth is the one building that once symbolized its decay, the Michigan Central Station. Abandoned in 1988, its hollowed-out frame became a national icon of urban ruin. But today, after a massive restoration by Ford Motor Company, it has reopened as a global hub for mobility and innovation. This once derelict landmark is now a beacon of opportunity, bringing tech companies, startups, and community partners together to build the future. And it's not just one building. Downtown, the new Hudson site is reshaping the skyline with the skyscraper, hotel, and the new global headquarters for General Motors. Neighborhoods are seeing new housing and retail with a growing focus on affordability. And here's the biggest news. After decades of decline, census data shows that Detroit's population is growing again. For the first time since 1957, the city has seen 2 consecutive years of growth, adding thousands of residents and climbing to a population of 645,705 in 2024. But this revival is complicated and fragile. The city still faces huge challenges like a high poverty rate and an employment rate that's still a concern. The benefits of all this new development haven't reached every neighborhood, and the gap between the shiny, revitalized downtown and the struggling outer neighborhoods is still vast. For the first time in a generation, though, there's real momentum. The story of Detroit isn't just a requiem anymore. It's being rewritten day by the people who stayed, the people who came back, and the people who are betting on its future. The ruins are still here, but they don't define the city. Instead, they serve as a powerful reminder of how much was lost and just how much there is still to fight for. The story of Detroit is a powerful lesson in American history, industry, and the will to survive. What do you think about the city's past and its future? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story valuable, please subscribe and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. Thanks for watching.